a little bit and talk a little bit about ourselves. So these are little quotes that you might hear during your lifetime. You are the company that you keep, and birds of a feather flock together. And what does that mean to you?
If you hang around somebody.
Go ahead. No, just shout it out. Go ahead, Nikita.
If you like hang around somebody bad or whatever, someone bad, I don't know.
Okay, and that works that way. If you hang around somebody bad, then you become bad, kind of. Right?
You like follow, you start to follow them and do what they do.
Exactly, right?
If you see that gets more attention than you or something.
Oh.
I mean, that was just an example. Like,
Oh, no,
that's
it's
what-
okay.
Right, no, right, exactly. And that's what it's saying, right? The people who you hang out with, the company you keep, is the person you become. So you are the company you keep, or birds of a feather, they'll flock together, right? So I want to ask you guys, if you can think of a time where somebody you know, maybe it was your friend, maybe it was a boyfriend, maybe it was your girlfriend, your parents, whatever, they left for an extended period of time, and then when they came back, they were totally different. So like, and for me, I have this friend, right? He's my best friend, and we grew up together since elementary school. And he didn't really leave, right? When we were in college, he ended up joining a fraternity, right? And his Greek life, right? And so, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right? People like going Greek at school. But, you know, the more he started hanging out with this person, the more he kind of changed. And the more, you know, he did his whole pledging process for a whole semester, right? Half the year he was gone doing whatever they do in that fraternity. And then he comes back and we're friends, we're still friends, but he's just completely different. Like his values changed. The person who I knew him as changed. And it's all because he was kind of somewhere else and surrounded by other people. And that's kind of what this means, you know. The people that you surround yourself with are the people that you become. That's who you are. So can you guys think of any example of that in your life?
My oldest friend is it. Well, she changed in a bad way, so we're not best friends no more. I hate her.
And that happens, right? One of your friends, fake friends, right? They're somebody to you now, but then they change because they go somewhere else, or something like that, right?
She tried to be too much like me.
What else? What else? Nobody? You don't know anybody in your life that this happened to?
Well, people know.
Okay. And we don't have to share it because it's personal, right? But if you'd like to, I would love to hear it.
My cousin changed. She went to rehab.
It's rehab, right? Okay, no, hey, that's cool. And that's it. So, was it a better or worse change?
She changed bad.
Bad.
Like, she was like happy go lucky, and she like depressed now.
Right, and that's why she's in rehab, to get better.
Was he you?
Right? And that happens. No, that happens. And that's why you go somewhere. That's good. That's fine. And when that stuff happens, you go somewhere to become better, right? And you change, right? So that is a little kind of smaller example of reproductive isolation in a way, right? It's kind of taking it from real life and trying to put this to this principle. So first of all, what is isolation, right? You see this picture, isolation, under it says, well, dang, right? They're by themselves, has a boat, and he lives in this place, and that's it. Yes, Ms. Lamar?
It's like contained.
It's contained, right? You're contained. And this is what we're talking about this river, Ms. Legato. She has these two different groups separated by a river, and they're isolated from each other because there's no interaction. And that's what an isolation is. And we're going to talk about how that drives into making a new species. Something completely new and completely different from what it used to be. So here's your objective. Everybody get your piece of paper out. Write it back on Ms. Delgado's notes also. The same notes that you have from Ms. Delgado, take those out, and we're just going to continue on. Because this is the same stuff. We just want to drive this into the ground. And since we're going over this again, everybody should get 100% on the second stuff. Done. Oh. Come on. Come on, 10 seconds. Cool. So students will be able to, that's what SWB8C stands for if we haven't figured that out. Students will be able to sequence the events, so order the events that must occur in order for for a new species to be formed, and that's called speciation. The formation of a new species. Okay? So these are your key terms, and if you don't know these, and if Ms. Delgado didn't go through these, we should write these down now. So a species is what? Two.
Oh, sorry.
What is a species? Hold on, before we look at this, what's a species? We just went through it, right? So everybody should have an answer.
A group of organisms that are similar and can have fertile children.
They can have fertile children. That is the most important thing. Because if there are so many examples where you can cross and you can have two different animals that have children together, but that offspring, that child, isn't fertile. So an example she talked about was a mule. That's a donkey and a horse coming together and making a mule. But that mule can't have children. So since that mule can't have children, we know that the horse and the donkey are not the same species. What's another example? You guys ever watch Napoleon Dynamite?
Yeah.
Like a liger, a tiger, and a lion makes a liger, right? But that liger can't have children. It can't. Because a tiger and a lion are different species. They're separate. Okay, so fertile, we just went over that, is the ability to have children. You can have kids. And isolated, we talked about that too, is being closed off, having no interaction with anybody else. So this is a big key, this is a big term right here, reproductive isolation. What does reproductive mean? Sorry, what does reproductive mean? So, make more. So that's what reproduce means, right? Try not to use, so when we do definitions, try not to use that word in the definition. Because it'll help you understand. Because you could say reproductive, what does that mean? Oh, it means you can reproduce. So what does reproduce mean, right? It doesn't help you in your definition. So you need to make more, right? And isolation, we know that it's no interaction between groups. So when something's in reproductive isolation, it can't reproduce with anything else outside of where it is. So to drive it further without these creatures, to make it a little simpler, I think, you have one group, right? Everybody up here? Sorry. Up here? All right. So we have one group, and this is group A, right? Now we're going to say something happens to group A that splits it in part. And so now you have group A on one side, and then the other side of group A. So this is the group 1 of group A and group 2 of group A. Same group. Oops, sorry. It's the same population, right? The same people in group A, but they're split up by whatever this divide is. Whatever happened, it split them up into two groups. And so this group right here can't interact with this group, and vice versa. Right? Can't happen. So the only people they can reproduce with or make more children with is the people within their group. And that's what reproductive isolation is. So what can't mix if you're not reproducing? Right? If species can't physically breed with each other, what are they not mixing? What happens when we breed? You have two haploids, right? Your sperm and your egg coming back to meiosis, right? And they come together. And when they come together, they mix their DNA. So that's why, remember, we have one set of chromosomes from your father and one set of chromosomes from your mother. And so when you mate, a man and a woman mate and have children, their DNA mixes together and goes into the child. So when that happens and there's reproductive isolation, the people in the first group of group A can't mix with the second group of group A. And their DNA isn't mixing. Right? Yes, Mark.
When you put that up there, you remind me of the show called Under the Dome.
And what's under the dome?
It's like, they got this like dome thing around them. And it's like, oh, like, it's like the whole people are like trapped in this dome, because the government trapped them in there.
Okay.
So they can't like interact with outside people.
Exactly, right? And that's what it is. You're under the dome, right? Group 2 somehow got under the dome and can't interact with anybody else. So they're living by themselves now, and they're with the people in that dome only. So the sequence, to break it down, SIATs, right? Right? Yeah, write this down. Sequence, isolation, adaptation, time, and speciation.
Dang.
Right now, come on.
The definition.
Yeah, you know. So, and when separation occurs, right? That's what's going to divide our group into two. That's what that little squiggly line is. That's the divide. Something separates. And what is an example of that? Ms. Delgado said it. Does anybody remember? Johnny, you remember? What about what happens? Desmond said something about continental drift. What's another like natural disaster? Anything can happen. Lamari says an earthquake.